Hey, hello everyone. How are you doing? Welcome back to day 10 of 15 days of React design patterns. And guess what? We are going to get started today. We are going to talk about pub sub design pattern. Allow me that. We are also going to touch base on observer design pattern. And we're going to see how we are going to use the pub sub design pattern in React and in what are the use cases you should be using that. We'll be writing some of the code ground up, creating project to demonstrate this further. Before we proceed, I think it's worth looking into what we have covered so far. So, guys, we have done this already. From day 1 to day 9, we have covered all this design pattern, and please feel proud if you have come across this far. Today, of course, we are going to talk about observer and the PubSub pattern. And after this, there are few more important patterns like performance, slot, hook factory, hazard, error boundary, suspense are coming for you. Feel excited and don't miss it. If you don't want to miss it, subscribe to tapaScript, support this channel. Let's quickly check it out. What are we going to learn today? We'll get started by talking need of a notification or an event. This is where the observer and the PubSub patterns fit in. We're going to learn about them, how they can be used with React, and then we'll be building something using EventBus, broadcasting, basically the message queue, all these things together, demonstrating PubSub pattern with React. It will be awesome. And then we're going to talk about the differentiation or the use cases of using React context versus the PubSub pattern, what to use when you should know. And then we're going to talk about other use cases that you can build using this pattern. Of course, some of the pitfalls and anti-pattern as it goes. And finally, the task. Excited? Traditionally, you will have a client and a server. And in the client-server communication, client will request something to the server and then server will send back response to the client and client will work on the response to do whatever they want to do. But this is a very traditional model where it is always like do a request, get a response. But beyond that, there are other models exist where someone can subscribe to something which is nothing but an event, and whenever the event occurs they get a notification back. So in this case no one really trying to fetch something from somebody else. It is all about getting subscribed to certain things, and whenever that certain things happen get a notification of that thing happen and do the further action. And this notification is just not about telling that something happened, it is also about passing the data after something happened so that that data can be taken and can be processed and used further. This is exactly where the observer and the PubSub patterns come into picture. Let's take a look into them one by one. Observer is a design pattern where there will be an object which we call as subject, which keeps tracks of his own dependents, which is known as observer. Okay, and it can notify the observer only when something happens or something changes. For example, let's say within the code we have done certain action, maybe adding a to do, removing a to do, sending an email, whatever, some kind of process that we have done, and due to that some events gets generated, and now this subject has to notify each of this observer. How will it do? The subject will already have the list. This list is usually dynamic list, not a static list. For example, the observer can be added with a dynamic methodology at the runtime. Main point here is the subject will always have the list of observer that it has to notify on certain events. So it can notify the observer, and once the observer gets the notification, as I told before, that it doesn't only get that something happened, through that notification it also can get the payload or the data from the subject so that it can process and use it. Observer can process and use it within itself. So very simple design pattern, observer design pattern, where there will be an object called subject and the subject will have its own dependents which we know as an observer. Whenever there is something happened, subject can send the notification to all its observer with the additional data to process. Now in this pattern you have to remember one thing, that subject has to know its dependents, means its observer, well ahead and well before. Now an example of that would be like you are on LinkedIn and you have changed your bio, and you can publish that bio as like a change event, and whoever your followers or the connections are on LinkedIn, they get a notification saying that hey, so and so person that you are following or you're connected with has changed their bio, do you want to take a look into it? So one part is getting that notification at the top on the LinkedIn, And once you click on it, you get a better details of it, like what exactly changed in the bio. That's the data I was talking about, from the subject to all the observer. So this is a very easy design pattern and very good design pattern for notifying the observer along with the data that they needed. In the PubSub design pattern, there are two entities that exist. One called publisher, another called subscriber. Now, in the previous design pattern, where you have seen a subject had to know all its observers so the subject can notify all the observers. In case of PubSub pattern, a greater flexibility is the subscribers never know who is the publisher, publishers never know who are the subscribers. So in the observer pattern, it mostly worked in the one-to-many relationship. One subject and there are multiple observers that subject is aware of. In case of PubSub model, it is not one-to-many, rather it becomes many-to-many. So this is one step ahead, and this is only possible due to something called a message broker. What is a message broker? Message broker is someone to whom a publisher publish an event, and then message broker contains certain information on which any of the subscriber can subscribe to. So whenever message broker receive an event that a publisher publishes, it can put that event into different kind of topics that we can create, like say T1 and T2. Now a bunch of subscribers can subscribe to an event that is related to say T1, and it gets a notification of that event whenever the event takes place. And on the same topic, if another subscriber have subscribed to, if the same event happen, it also gets the notification because they subscribe to. And same thing can happen to any other subscriber as well. Now let's say there are few more subscribers which have not subscribed to the topic T1, rather they have subscribed to the topic T2. In that case, if there is an event that is related to T2 happen, they get a notification accordingly. And any other subscriber, the same thing happen. So if you see in this model and compared to the observer one we have seen before, observer one was one to many. There is some kind of coupling exists where subject has to know about the observer, but in this case the publisher has no way to know about the subscriber. The subscriber also has no way to know about the publisher. Publisher publish the thing on the message broker on a particular topic. If a subscriber is interested on a particular topic, they subscribe for it. Whenever certain things happen related to that topic, they get the notification along with the data again. A real world use case would be YouTube itself, right? There are so many people have subscribed, for example, to the tapaScript channel. Whenever I publish a new video, all the folks who have subscribed get a notification saying that I have published a video. Now that doesn't go one to one. I don't go to each of my subscriber and tell them explicitly like, hey, there is a new video has come. Rather, I publish it on YouTube. Whoever subscribed to that topic, tapaScript and tapaScript's video, they gets a notification. And there are other YouTube channels as well where you would have subscribed. Imagine them as separate topic that YouTube maintains. And whenever somebody else, other content creator on YouTube, publish a video from that topic, means from that YouTube channel, you get a notification as well. Now, if someone has subscribed to that other content creators channel, not to my channel, that means they will get notification only from that channel and the vice versa. So based on which topic they have subscribed to. That's exactly how publisher and the subscribe model works. So I hope you are now very clear about the differences between an observer pattern and a publisher subscriber pattern or the PubSub pattern. Just to give a recap, in the observer pattern, it is a one-to-many. One subject manages many objects and one-to-many. In case of publisher and the subscriber, it is many-to-many. It means a publisher can publish to any number of topics, and on each of this topic, there could be any number of subscribers. Okay. In case of observer pattern, subject has to know the observers, the dependents. So there are some amount of coupling exist, but in terms of PubSub model, publisher and the subscribers are not aware of each other. There is a message broker or EventBus. There are different kind of terminologies used for this, are going to take care of this synchronization of sending the event, notifying and sending the data. I hope this is fully clear to you. Now you may get a question like, which one React most likely to use, like it is observer pattern or the publisher subscriber pattern? Of course you can use both of them, but what would make more sense for React to use more of PubSub pattern than the observer pattern? Because components must be isolated, they should do one job perfectly, they should act as one entity, reusable entity. So the PubSub pattern encourages the composition and not coupling. In case of observer pattern, there are amount of coupling that we know exist. That subject has to know the observer. It means that your component somewhere has to be tightly aware like who are the observers are, but we want loose coupling whenever it comes to React so that the components can be isolated. So the architecture of PubSub encourages composition, not coupling. Another advantage of PubSub model would be it allows cross-component communication without using props and context. We're going to see that in example. So with React, in my opinion, the more usage of PubSub model is expected than the observer model. Now it's time that we start building something using the PubSub model and React. Let's build a use case. We're going to build an add to cart functionality. You would have seen this using context API a lot in React, right? But we're going to demonstrate the same add to cart functionality using PubSub model. For example, you do add to cart and you see like one element got added to the cart and what element got added. So I'll just add a few elements you're getting like is getting added. Along with that, I'm also going to teach you something called broadcasting. So when we talk about PubSub model, it means a publisher publish something. Let's say a publisher is publishing add to cart event and a subscriber, which is over here, has subscribed to that event. So whenever that event happening, it gets a notification so that it can update the count. And not only that, it can actually show the data that publisher is publishing over here. Along with that, we are also going to do something called broadcasting. Whenever a publisher is publishing something, we want that to be broadcasted for this particular domain or the application to all its open instances. What does it mean? I'm going to open two more tabs, okay? And in both the tabs, I'm going to access this application. I'm going to access it here. I'm going to access it here. Now, from one of the instance, take a look over here. I'm doing add to cart twice. First, I added a soap. Second, I added a light. In the second and the third tab, I have not done anything. But if I go to the second tab, what I'm seeing now, the count to which I have done in the first tab has already got notified, propagated over here. Not only that, the items also coming over here. If I go to the third tab, yeah, I see the same thing. How is it happening? This is happening using the methodological broadcasting. So we are also going to see broadcasting along with PubSub with React. And this is going to teach some awesome thing. And don't miss the task at the end, because once you do that after learning this, your learning will complete. Okay, guys, time for code. The heart of our application would be something called EventBus or the message broker, what we have seen in the diagram before. Then we can have a component which we can call as publisher. This publisher component is going to publish something on this EventBus. The something is what we can cook. It will be add to cart. And then there will be a bunch of subscribers who would have subscribed to this event bus for any kind of event, and whenever the event happen, they get a notification along with certain data. This is what our application is going to be. As a publisher, we'll be using add to cart as a component, which will publish every time something gets added to the cart, to the event bus. And there'll be a bunch of other components. For our example, we'll create just one, let's say a card badge or something, where we show that number of items. Okay, so that's our first goal. So first and foremost, let's create the event bus, and let me explain that to you little bit slowly because it might be new to some of you. And once you understand what it does, rest of the pieces are very plain React. As usual, I have a React project created over here. I have named it as PubSub pattern. Inside src, let's create a new folder called lib, and inside that let's create a new file called EventBus.js. As you see, I am using the extension JS, not JSX, to ensure that this is just a JavaScript file, a plain old JavaScript file, which will give a representation of an event bus or the message broker. So an event bus, usually an object, say const event bus equals to an object with two primary methods, one called subscribe and another one called publish. So as you know that somebody using the event bus publish method will publish something on the event bus. Somebody will subscribe to this event bus for any kind of event using the subscribe method. The purpose you know. So this is the structure that you have to think and keep it in your brain, that event bus is an object which will have two primary method. One is subscribe, another one is publish. Okay. Now, as I told, the bunch of item will be listening to event bus by subscribing to it for any kind of update. So that means we need to have a data structure where we can put all the listeners and can manage them. So let's create a data structure for this, and we'll be using the map as a data structure. Why? Because we want to create a map between the event name, the particular event that happens, versus who are those subscribers have subscribed for that event. Okay, so you want a map. For that purpose, let's create a map. We call it as a listeners map. Again, the listeners map will be a map between a particular event name versus who are those subscribers have subscribed for that particular event. Okay, now we are going to write the subscribed functions and its logic. The first thing that we are going to check, if my map, which is my listeners map, already has a particular event in it or not. Okay, so it has a particular event inside or not, and this event, whenever somebody wants to subscribe for an event, can pass that particular event name. So if this event name is already there in the listeners or not, if this event name is not there in my listeners map, then first thing I'm going to do in listeners dot set, again, if you are new to JavaScript's map, set, all this data structure, in 40 days of JavaScript I have taken session on map, set, weak set with plenty of examples, guys. Don't miss the fundamental, go ahead and check it out. The link to the 40 days of JavaScript and that particular video is in the description of this video. You can always take a look. Now here what we're doing, we don't have this event that a particular guy is trying to subscribe. So it means that in the listener, I can now put the event name as the key. And for this particular event, as it is newly getting created, let's create an empty set. So what are we going to do after creating this empty set? The only thing we're going to do is like whoever trying to subscribe, that particular guy we want to keep inside this set, because that particular guy is trying to subscribe for this event. And as this event we are managing inside this map, the listener map, as I told, the map between the event name versus whoever wants to subscribe to that event. So I have to add that handler, the entity who is going to subscribe, that entity, let's call it as handler, we are going to put inside this set. How are we going to do that? Again, the methodology of how map works, listeners dot get, here you can pass this event name, which is a key that will give you back this particular set. So on top of that set, you can add this particular handler. See how simple it is, right? Once you know some of this data structure. So it's pretty easy. So I have a subscribe method now. To subscribe, you have to subscribe to an event. So you have to pass the event and yourself, that I am the person going to subscribe to this particular event. I am passing the event and myself. So first I'm checking whether the event itself is there in the map or not. If it is not there in the map, let's create it with an empty set. And then later on that particular set, I'm adding the guy who is trying to subscribe for this particular event. Now, most often this is enough, but as a great practice, as you are giving the opportunity to subscribe, you should also give the opportunity to unsubscribe. Okay. Now, unsubscribe, how it will happen? If you guys know the use effect of React, I think you use it already. You know the cleanup method of use effect. What do? You return another function from use effect inside which you do everything for cleanup, right? In this design pattern for subscription and unsubscription, the similar kind of thing that you're going to do. You are going to return a function from here. Very simple. And over here, you can now do, okay, I want to unsubscribe from it. Unsubscribe means I had subscribed for this particular event by adding myself. Now I want to do unsubscribe. So what I'll be doing, I'll be just doing the reverse of it. Instead of add, I'll be just doing delete. And I can put an optional chaining to make sure that in case the event name is not there, this is not going to fail, not going to throw any runtime exception. So that's all my subscribe method is. So anyone who is invoking the subscribe method from anywhere will be passing the event name, pass the handler, that will get subscribed, and this will also return another function which is called unsubscribe function. So they can take that unsubscribe function and they can call the unsubscribe function whenever they want to unsubscribe. Subscribe is done. Now next thing that we are going to focus on is something called publish. Now if I want to publish something, what I have to publish? I have to publish something to this event bus. If you remember the diagram, publishing something to the event bus. For publishing, you need certain kind of topic or the event, and you also publish certain kind of data. As I told, it is not only about the notification, it also about the data that you get. So while publishing, you will be giving two things. One is the event name and another we call it as payload or data, anything you can call. Now for publishing, what we have to do, whom to publish? First of all, I have to publish on this particular topic for this particular event. So we have this listener and I can do dot get. This is why I used map. I didn't use array. I didn't use object, because if I had used array, I had to again iterate through the array. If I had used array of object, I had to iterate through. But as I have kept the topic or the event as my key inside the map, I can very well fetch it just by doing listener.get event name. Very easy. And inside that, if this particular event exists, I can now iterate through what? I can iterate through all the handlers of it. The moment I do listeners.get of event name, it returns me the set of subscribers subscribe for this event, because that is what we were adding over here. Correct? No? Listeners.get event name.add. I was adding those subscriber in the subscribe function. So if I do listeners.get event name, I'll get a set of subscribers. So on top of this, I can now do for each, I can loop through it. I can get each of the subscriber, and then I can call each of the subscriber using the data I want to send to them. See how simple this logic is. So now anyone calling this publish method, very simple. They will just pass the event name and they'll pass the data. For that event name, if there are already subscribers, I'll fetch each of the subscribers and I will call them using the payload. So this is all happening inside something called an event bus. This is not happening inside publisher. This is not happening inside the subscriber. This is happening something in the middle, which expose two functionality, one for publishing, one for subscribing. Now, last thing, to make this event bus available to the external world, let's just export it from here. So we are exporting an event bus. Our message broker or the event bus implementation is done. Now we are going to talk about publisher and the subscriber. For that purpose, inside SRC, let's create a new folder called components as usual. Inside that, let's create two new folders, one for publisher and another one let's create for subscriber. Now I want to make this event bus available to both publisher and the subscriber. That's the whole reason I have exported it. But I can use the far better design pattern for making it available. For that, under SRC, let's create a new folder called hooks. I have taught you the custom hook and the hook design pattern, right? Let's create a hook called useEvent that will easily expose the methods for subscribing, unsubscribing, etc. The simple one. So first thing first, let's import the event bus over here. Yeah. And we would also need use effect hook, okay, from React. Now let's use the use effect. What are the dependencies that we can put in use effect? We can put both event name and the handler. And over here I have the event bus and I can do dot subscribe. I can pass the event name and handler both to it. Excellent. Now every time I use this hook anywhere, what it will do is like it will just help me to subscribe, isn't it? But there is one more thing that you can do over here. You remember calling the subscribe method, what happened? If I go to the subscribe method, all this thing happens, but it also returns what? It also returns a method to unsubscribe, isn't it? So inside our use effect itself, I can now take this return value inside something called unsubscribe, right? And then from the use effects cleanup function, I can just return unsubscribe. So this is the reason why I wanted to opt for a hook. Now this hook, whenever we call, it automatically subscribe a particular handler for an event, and it also provide another function for unsubscribing it whenever my component gets unmounted. So whenever the component gets unmounted, unsubscribe will be called, and the subscription that happened before, it goes out, because I don't want any kind of performance problem. I don't want any kind of memory leak. I don't want anything to got into the infinite loop. Whenever my component gets unmounted, I want a pure cleanup. And in this case, the pure cleanup is the particular component which would have subscribed to the event bus using this, that component also gets unsubscribed. This is why this hook is very important, and I want you to understand and use it. All right, so now let us go to our publisher one, which is add to cart. Let's create a new React component called add to cart button, and this is our publisher component. So it's going to publish. What are we going to publish? We are going to publish a particular product that user have added. And let us define the JSX part first. I think that way it will be much more clear. So let's do a return. Let's take a div, simple div, and we can call this as a publisher component. So let's say publisher, and let's add a button over here, a simple button that says add to cart. Let's add some basic style for this div, basically adding a flex layout, giving some kind of border, that kind of thing. Let's make this one a little bigger with text 2XL. Let's make the button look like a button, like green color button. We are making it look like a button. So this is our simple add to cart buttons JSX. Now, whenever somebody click on this button, we have to publish certain event using certain details. So for that purpose, I of course need an on click, right? And on the on click, I have done something called handle click. So let's do const handle click equals to an arrow function inside which I am going to handle the handle click. Now here I am going to publish something, and publishing things is not definitely part of my use event hook. Use event hook takes care of subscription and the unsubscription. So I have something inside my event bus which is called publish method. So in my add to cart button, the thing that I need my event bus so that I can publish. So let's get my event bus from the lib, and let us also take a bunch of products so that one of the product, every time this button gets clicked, we can randomly pick up and we can publish to our event bus, so that any subscriber who are listening to that event bus will get a subscription of or the notification of that particular product on this particular button click. So for that purpose, let us create an array of product. So this is an array of product. We call it as products, which has an ID and name like soap, towel, bed, mirror, light, etc. Now all the things that are going to happen over here. First of all, I want to select a product from this products array randomly. So it means that I need a random index. How can you create a random index in JavaScript for an array? Very easy. You have the array length, right? So you know like how many elements are there in the array. You have the math.random as a function. You just multiply them, get a float out of it, and then you get a random index. Basically, the logic is as simple as this. You get the random number, multiply that the number of elements there in the array, and get the math.float that gives you the random index. Now, randomly, if you want to select a product from this products array, you basically going to do selected product equals to products, that is the array, and pass the random index. Now, this is a selected product. This is the product that you want to publish. For publishing, we already have the event bus that we have imported. On the event bus, you already have something called a publish function. So you call the publish function. It takes two arguments. If you remember, the first one is an event and second one is the payload, basically the data that you want to send. Now the event, how do you define? Usually you define it with a string. You can create the string constant or you can pass a string over here. The format that we use is something like a topic colon actual event. For example, here we're doing add to cart. Now on cart, along with the add, there could be other possibility. Remove from the cart, edit the cart, completely make the cart empty. All these are different kind of actions that you can take on the topic called cart. So in this event, which is like add to cart, we can define the topic as cart and the event is add. So the way that I'm forming this particular event name is saying cart colon add. Now this event name should be used while subscribing also, because if you see over here, for the subscribe also you need the event name. For this event only, my subscriber should subscribe for which I am doing the publishing. So this event name is something crucial. You have to use the exactly same syntax for the event name when subscribing also, publishing and subscribing. Then only it will match. For this event I am publishing, for this event only somebody is subscribing. Now, so it is good that if you can take this out in a constant file and export it from that constant file and then import into both the places from where you are publishing and the subscribing. Okay, so you can always refactor this one. And along with that, I want to pass certain payload. For example, I want to pass this particular product's ID. So I have selected product dot ID, and I want to pass the name of the selected product. So selected product dot name. All right. So whenever this button gets clicked, on the click of this button, I first pick up one of the product randomly from this products array, and that particular product's details, I am publishing it on my event bus on this particular event. Now on the event bus, I have a map already. So this map will be populated now with the event name called cart colon add and a listener set inside which whoever going to subscribe, they will get added. That will happen only when I call the subscribe method. For subscriber, we'll come to the subscriber folder, right click and do a new file called cardbatch.jsx. Let's create a card badge component. And if you remember, now for the subscription, or unsubscription, we have a hook. So we'll do import, our hook name is useEvent. And this useEvent hook basically takes two things. If I go over here, is the event name, and you remember the event name? This is what I asked you to keep in a constant file. You can do that. I'm not doing it. You can do that. So this is the event name. It has to be same for which you are subscribing to. And then the handler function. What happened when this particular event happens? This is what makes you a subscriber, isn't it? You get a notification. That's fine. The notification will come over here. But what do you do with the notification? That's how you become subscriber. You get a notification and you do something with it. So as part of the notification, you get something called the data. How do you get that data as part of notification? You see over here, when you do a publish, for each of the handler, it can send the data. You see this payload. So you get the data. You get the data over here. Now taking this data, you can do whatever that you would like to do, right? In our case, what will happen? We will get this particular data. After getting this data, we want to show the count, like how many data this particular subscribers has reached for that event, and also want to list them down. So for that, we need to have a state in this component. Let's use state for that. Let's create a state called items over here. And whenever a new data, new product comes in, we can do set items, take all the existing items, and then add the new item to this, right? Simple. So now in our JSX, let's take a div, let's take a h2, call it as subscriber. Now let's show in a p tag how many times it got notified, basically how many items it got so far, items.length. And what are the items if you want to show? Let's take a ulli. We can loop through these items, do a map, take a item, and for each of the item I can take an li. I can render the item dot name over here. As it is a list, I have to use a key, and I can use item dot id over here. Simple stuff, isn't it? Now let us add a few class names so that it looks little elegant. For example, I can add a flex layout over here, flex column. This h2 I can make little bit bigger, just like how we did for publisher. Let's make the count also a little bit more bigger, and for the list we don't want to show the bullet points. That's all. So this is my subscriber. We subscribe to the same events that I have published, and on the subscription of it, whenever the same event publish certain data, that is the data that I get, I persist the data in a data structure which is an array, and I basically show the count from that array and the items from the array. Now, can we see this in practice? Yes, I can go to app.jsx. Whatever I have over here, let's remove them, and let's import my publisher first, which is add to cart button. Then let's import my subscriber, which is like the cart badge. And over here I can do add to cart button, my publisher. Below this, let's do the cart badge, my subscriber. Let's put some margin maybe over here. Yeah, I think this is good. Now, am I running this? Yes, I'm already running this. So let's go to browser. Let's go to localhost 5173. Awesome. So I have the publisher and the subscriber. So let's do add to cart. I see one. So one thing I published, and that one thing come over here. No context is used here. No props are used here. It's just with the publisher and subscriber model. Let's do one more. Yeah. Now I have added soap. The count become 2. Let's do one more. Mirror 3 is randomly taking. Towel 4. Again came towel because randomly taking. So I can keep adding things. Awesome, isn't it? So my publisher and the subscriber model working. It is not using any context, not using any props. It is just publishing things from here and subscribing things over here. I hope it was useful. So as a recap, I have just created one EventBus or my message broker which expose, subscribe and publish. I have created a hook to manage the subscribe and unsubscribe to make sure that throughout the life cycle of a component, you can get subscribed. The moment it goes out, useEffect can take care of unsubscribing it automatically. That's the reason this particular hook was created. Then I have a publisher component which can publish on the click of a button. I'm publishing using my EventBus published method on this particular event. This is the data I'm publishing. And whoever subscribing, for example, I have a card badge which is subscribing using this useEvent. That's hook for the same event. So if the data is sent, it is going to get this data. I'm getting this data, persisting it in my local state as an array, and from there I'm just showing it. So that's how the simply it is working. Now the next thing, we want to enhance it using something called broadcasting. The broadcasting idea is, even if it is happening inside one particular tab for a domain, for an application, you can broadcast to the other instances of the tab. Can we do that of the browser tab? Very, very important. For example, a user logged out from one tab, you want to log that user out from all other tabs. How do you do it? This is how you do it with broadcasting. Let's see the broadcasting one. For broadcasting, you basically need three things in our context. One is a broadcaster. So you need a broadcaster who will broadcast, and another thing that you need is something called a listener. The listener is something which is listening to this broadcast and then will be act upon it. And the broadcasting happen on something called a channel. So you have to create a channel, just like how we have created the event name, right? You have to create a channel. On this channel, you have to broadcast. Means broadcaster has to broadcast. Whoever listener are listening to this channel will be able to get notification and will get updated automatically. This is how the broadcaster and the listener thing works. Now, I want to introduce you to something. If you go to this website called Web APIs Playground.Versal.app, I had created that as an open source project. Here you have bunch of web APIs and their demonstration available. You can play around. You can search for broadcasting as one of the thing, and you can actually play around the broadcasting demo. You can learn more about it. You can read the documentation. So this is JavaScript, one of the web APIs that I am using. I'm just making you familiar with a playground that we already have for this. Now to go back to this, we have to now create a broadcaster, we have to create a listener, and we have to create a channel. Let's go to the code, very simple one. And these things, once you do it once, I think it is very, very easy to replicate it for any other projects where you need it. So going inside the lib, we are going to create a new file and we're going to name this as broadcast.js. And we are also going to create something called listener. So let's create that also. Empty file for now, listener.js. So inside the broadcast.js, create const, we will call it as cross tab channel equals to new broadcast. This is an object that JavaScript gives you, the broadcast channel. And over here, you can give a channel name. So you have created a broadcast channel now inside the broadcast.js, and let's export it so that we can import and use it elsewhere. So this is our broadcast. Now let us go to the listener. Now in the listener, you can listen to the broadcast. For that again, you need this channel. So first thing you are going to do, you are going to import that cross tab channel from broadcast, and you will do cross tab channel dot on message. You see over here on message, there are multiple things, on message error. In case there is an error while sending the message, you have to do something. So let's say on message, this a callback function, it gets the data that you send, and taking this data, you can do whatever you want, right? If you remember the data that we want to send through this, the cross tab channel, through the broadcasting and everything, what exactly the data that we want to send? We want to definitely send the event name and the payload, so that all other tabs also get that event name and the payload and can update them accordingly, right? So what we are expecting from here, we are expecting the event name and the payload, and we are destructuring them. Now as I get this event name and the payload, what we can do, very simple, is I can get my event bus. I'll get my event bus over here, and taking this event bus, I will call the publish method, and superbly I can pass this event name and the payload. So what will happen? You guess, you got this event name and the payload cross tab channel, maybe in other tab. You got the event bus instance also over there because same application running, same event name and the payload you are now publishing. So now whoever subscribed in that particular tab instance for this application, they automatically get notification for this, right? So you can do this. Additionally, I think one good practice to do that I want to call it out over here, so that you can republish every time without rebroadcasting. You can control that using this configuration object. You can say broadcast is false or not. Now, as we are doing it, let us go to the publish method of the event bus. Coming over here, now I can take this new argument, the configuration object, and here I can do a check if this broadcast is true, if it is available. In that case, please import the cross channel, the cross tab channel, and on the cross tab channel, we have a method called post message, and post the same event name and the payload. Okay. So this is how things are connected. So let's see it once more. Very easy. On the broadcast side, we have created a channel, given the name of it, called app events. In the listener side, we have imported this particular channel. This channel is known by its name, App Events. It helps you for debugging and all other purpose, this particular name. Now coming over there, the on message is at the listener side. That means once the message is received, what am I going to do? So if the message is received, I'm taking the event name and the payload from this, and I'm publishing this message. Basically, I'm publishing it back. Now, if I publish this message, I come over here to my event bus. If the broadcast is available, because I'm managing it through the configuration object, if the broadcast is available, on that particular channel, I'm posting the message and I'm passing this event name and the payload. That's all I am doing. Now we should try this out and see if it is working. But before that, we have to tell our application. That means the application where it is running, the React application, about this broadcast and the listener, right? How am I going to tell? Okay, fine. So from broadcast, I am using this particular channel inside the event bus, and I'm posting this message. But I have not done anything with the listeners. I've just created the listeners, but listeners is not called anywhere, right? Now I have to somehow integrate this listener with my application, isn't it? Whenever the application get bootstrap, that's the time you have to tell this application that I have now established a broadcasting channel, and my tab should listen to that broadcasting channel for any kind of data emitting and should handle that. For that, main.jsx file and import ./lib/ your listener. Okay, so this is how you attach your listener to your application. Now things should work as it is, because whenever I'm publishing something, remember the flow again. Whenever I'm publishing something, my local publishing was happening anyways. If the broadcast is true, in that case, I am now publishing on the cross-tab channel also. The moment I'm broadcasting, what I'm broadcasting from here, I'm broadcasting the event and event name and the payload. So whoever listening, means my all other tabs are there in the listeners, which I have already registered in the main.jsx file, will get this event name and payload. And then I can again do this EventBus.publish. What does it mean? EventBus.publish means it will do the local publish, basically for the tab alone. And that is where we are given broadcast is false. So it means that with this EventBus.publish method, we'll have the broadcast as false. It won't be again going inside this and again trying to do another post message. So it won't go into the infinite loop. That is what I've controlled using this configuration. So it will just execute this portion for its local tab update. So this portion is for the cross tab. This portion is only for the within the tab update, and I am managing through the broadcasting mechanism. Let's see the demo whether it works or not. So I have one instance, and then let's create one more instance. Here, the first instance, let's do add once. Yeah, coming to the second one, I can see. Let's do add increment over here. Let's go to the first one. Yeah, I see it is in sync. I do it 2 more times. If I come to the second one, yeah, it happened. Now, if I go to the third one, which is now just initiating, so it will initiate with 0, but these are all at 4. I'll increase this by 1. It become 5. First one is 5. Third one is 1, because it got incremented just now. Just now it got incremented, not from the fourth state, because it is in memory. In memory, it was initialized with the in memory array. Had I stored it into database, and from database, if I had called, this also would have been synced with those 5 numbers. I hope you understand that part. So this is about broadcasting with PubSub model using React, a lot of concept together. I hope you enjoyed it. So one common question that I get is like, we already have the context API in React, through which you can save the data into context, and without using the props, you can make the data available inside the component tree. Then why do we need the publisher subscriber pattern? Because same add to cart functionality I can achieve using context as well. Yes, your question is right. Now let me give you the answer. The add to cart functionality you could have achieved with context, no worries about that. But add to cart functionality is just an example that I've taken to demonstrate the PubSub pattern. The PubSub pattern is useful where you have to notify certain things from outside of the React's context. It is pure JavaScript, and it is any library or the framework agnostic. A context one is applicable for only a React tree or the React component hierarchy, correct? Now, if you have two React tree, like which are completely disjoint, they don't have any parent, and you want to notify from one to another, you cannot do it using context. You need, for context, you need something at the top level through which you can provide to all other branches. But if you don't have, you have two independent application, React application, they want to communicate with each other. Think about it. If add to cart is one React application, and the list where you're showing the product is another React application, and they want to communicate with each other, context won't work there, my friend. That's a actual use case where you can bring in the PubSub pattern through which you can publish something into the topic and another app can always take from by subscribing to it. I hope this is clear to you. Some of the great use case of the PubSub pattern would be like a global toast notification. Publish toast events anywhere and everywhere. Shopping cart badge update. One application take care of adding it to the cart. Another application is going to render the cart and the cart management. You can do that. Micro front-end communication. Multiple independent apps developed in different technology want to communicate with each other using the data. Fantastic use case. The use case of any kind of analytics or logging, like you want to publish the analytic results of the events to all the screen, or some kind of chat messages signaling, those kind of use cases where the PubSub pattern will really stand out. Now we want to talk about some of the anti-patterns or the pitfalls or some of the guidance that you have to keep in mind while using this pattern, especially with React. First of all, don't use PubSub pattern for everything. First, look for whether you can do things with the local state itself. Okay, I can do great. If your answer is no, do I need to pass props? Okay, through props I can do. If the answer is no, props can be done, a lot of multi-level hierarchy. Okay, props is not the option. Can I do it using context? Okay, I can do it using context. Okay, look like the context also is not working out. Can I do with PubSub pattern? Is the PubSub pattern is the answer, because I cannot do with any kind of state management like use state or use reducer. I cannot do using props. I cannot do using context. Maybe then PubSub is the pattern that I should be using. Second thing, I have seen some folks that use PubSub pattern as their hidden global store. Don't do that. It will be a debugging nightmare. The state has to be controlled and kept within the application, whether it is using use state, use reducer, or if you want to use any other state management paradigm like Redux. Then the other problem that I have seen, at times there will be too many events that will be emitted. If you emit too many events, you have to make sure that your code is not becoming a pure hodgepodge tomorrow. Like you are not able to control, like for which event you have subscribed, which event got published, and what kind of things that you are doing. You have to manage those event things very well. So I was saying that create proper constant, give them proper definition, and use them. And the last thing would be, don't get into the circular event chain. Like publisher is also a subscriber, subscriber is also a publisher. That is going to be a nightmare. So the rule of thumb is use PubSub framework only for cross-cutting concerns where props and context become useless. You have to talk through to different tree or to different app, bring the publisher and the subscriber pattern. I've given enough use cases beyond the one that I have showed today. Now let's get into task. Last but not the least, and this is another effective task that you must do. So build a complete notification system using PubSub. Create EventBus. I have taught you how to do it. Create the hook, use event hook. Create a publisher, which is a button that will emit any notification. Create subscriber, that is a notification panel where you show the notification. Add categories like success notification, error notification, warning notification. Add an ability to dismiss it or auto hide it. And store the notification in the local storage. Simple enough using PubSub. If you have understood what I have taught you, I'm sure like you will be able to follow it and get it done. And if you are doing so, please post it on Discord. Let us also see what you are developing. And all the source code available on the tapaScript GitHub. Please give it a follow because there are many other useful repositories are available. Go inside repositories, come to 15 days of React design patterns, and you will find day 10. Once the video is published, you will see all the code inside that. You can make use of it, including the task. Please give a start to the repository if you find my work interesting and good. And don't forget to subscribe and support tapaScript, because to bring a content like this, it needs a lot of effort, and your subscription, your support is a great motivation for me. I'll very soon come back with day 11 with another interesting React design pattern. Stay tuned. Keep learning. Thank you.